Heyo! This week we are talking about semicolons and colons. No, not that kind of colon. We're talking about punctuation here. The first rule that we're going to learn is for semicolons. This is a rule that you actually already learned with conjunctive adverbs, but we're going to add on to it a little bit. So first, we can use a semicolon in place of a period to join together two independent clauses without a conjunction. Or we can use a semicolon in place of a period to join two independent clauses with a conjunctive adverb, like however or therefore. So for example, I went for a run, I drank chocolate milk afterwards. These two thoughts are very closely related. I don't really want to put a period between because I almost want to take like a super pause, which is kind of sometimes how I think of semicolons. So I'm going to put a semicolon right here. I went for a run, I drank chocolate milk afterwards. Now, I would not want to put a semicolon if I said, like, I went for a run, I really like to eat sushi, because those are completely unrelated thoughts. These two are related, so I can use that semicolon in place of a period. Now, I can also use a semicolon with a conjunctive adverb, like we have already learned when we did conjunctions. I went for a run. Moreover, I drank chocolate milk afterwards. I would put my semicolon right here. But this time, I also need to add a comma, because in this case, my conjunctive adverb, moreover, is really acting like an introductory word to this next independent clause. So the next semicolon rule has to do with lists. We can use semicolons within a list that already has commas to kind of lessen the confusion. For example, I like to eat strawberries, blueberries, bananas, and candy, including Snickers, s'mores, and Butterfingers. I could put a comma there, but that would be kind of confusing because I have a lot of commas going on in this sentence. So instead, if I put a semicolon there, it kind of clears up some things. I like to eat strawberries, blueberries, and bananas, and candy, including Snickers, s'mores, and Butterfinger, kind of separating these two different lists. Another example. My favorite places to visit are Malpais, Costa Rica, Crested Butte, Colorado, and Sanibel, Florida. I missed a comma right here, adding that in. But when I'm separating these different places, I want to use a semicolon instead of a comma because it makes things a little bit less confusing. I can put a semicolon there, and I can put a semicolon here. Again, I can put semicolons within lists if there are already commas within that list to kind of make some extra separations to make things less confusing. On to colons. So my first colon rule is that I can use a colon between two independent clauses if the second clause further explains or illustrates the first. In this case, I can or cannot capitalize the first word after that colon. It's really up to me. Grammatically, it actually doesn't make a difference because English is awesome. So for examples, I have, I love candy bars. My favorites are Snickers and Butterfinger, which is true. Bonus stamps if you bring me Snickers or Butterfingers. But I can put a colon right here because I'm connecting these two independent clauses. I love candy bars. My favorites are Snickers and Butterfinger. This clause is illustrating or bringing more meaning to this clause, so I can use a colon to separate them. Now this is the same exact example. I'm going to put my colon right here. In this example though, I've just capitalized that M to show you that it actually doesn't really matter if you capitalize that first word or not. Our second colon rule is that you can use a colon after an independent clause to introduce a quote or a list. I love candy bars, Snickers, Reese's, and Butterfinger. Right here, I can put a colon. I love candy bars is an independent clause. It's a sentence all by itself. And then I'm introducing a list after that sentence that is related to that sentence. Sneakers, not a thing. Snickers, Reese's, and Butterfinger. Also, there should be a comma there. My bad. The next example is using a colon to introduce a quote. Usually when we introduce quotes, we say things like, I said, comma, please buy me a Snickers bar. But we can also use colons to introduce quotes when we're not saying things like he said or she said or he asked. For example, I had very specific instructions, colon. Please buy me 3 Snickers and 1 Butterfinger. Guys, I'm realizing now that there are like errors all over this thing. This should say Snickers, not Snicker. Okay. I had very specific instructions is an independent clause. It could be a sentence all by itself. And I'm putting a colon after it because I'm introducing this quote. Our third colon rule is that colons can be used after a formal salutation in a letter. For example, if I said, "Dear Katie Hunt," I would put a colon after it because I don't know Katie Hunt. Well, I mean, actually I do because she's our assistant principal, but if you didn't know her or if you were writing her a formal letter, you would want to use a colon because, again, it's formal. Now, an informal letter would be like, "Dear Mom." You wouldn't use a colon then, you would just use a comma. To whom it may concern. This is a formal way to start off a letter when you don't know exactly who is going to be reading the letter that you're sending. For example, if you are sending some kind of letter to a college or to a registrar's office and you don't know exactly who's going to be reading the letter, you would put "to whom it may concern" followed by a colon. Our last colon rule has to do with book titles. Sometimes a book has a title and then it has a subtitle. It's like main title, smaller subtitle. When we're writing those out in a sentence, then we can put a colon between the title and the subtitle. One of my favorite books is Frankenstein, The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley. This is actually one of my favorite books. I would put a colon in between the main title, Frankenstein, and the subtitle, The Modern Prometheus. Another example would be The Secret Agent, A Simple Tale, has a rather ironic title. The Secret Agent is the title of the book, so I would put a colon after that. A Simple Tale is the subtitle, so I'm separating those two with a colon. I'll give you a stamp tomorrow if you tell me why this is an ironic title. All right, guys, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can ask me in class tomorrow, or you can leave them down below, and I will respond as soon as I can. See you later, alligators.